this line. Well, here, see where the red line is? Touch there. Touch the red line. Okay, if you need to mute, this is where you would mute.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay. I think
you
we're good.
are in, you are good.
Good.
Evening, all.
Yeah, wait.
Okay.
Cheryl, can you do that later too?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Throw on this water and then I'm done.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It's good to see y'all. Jeez,
Everybody's prompt this time
Lot-
out.
lots of familiar faces that I haven't seen in a while.
Yours too.
Good to see you all.
Let's
Jeez,
see.
I see lots of Bob's classmates though. Probably more than any other year on here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for a couple people here. Let's see. We got. I have to kind of keep an eye on the waiting room. Another familiar face there.
Hello, Bill.
Good evening.
Good
One
evening.
from my class. Everybody here's from my brother's class, Bill.
Let's see here.
Ed, was your brother in Paul's class?
That's correct.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
And Frank and Pete and Al and Bill.
Right. I'm amazed that there are so many family members that were in the seminary at different times in their lives. I know my own younger brother, Bob, he would have been entered in the class first year of 1965, and he only stuck it out till Thanksgiving and called it a day. And then there's all the Hogans,
Mhm.
Mulallys, John, and who was in our class?
Neil.
Neil. And I think one of their older brothers was in there earlier.
And by the way, how's Neil doing? Wasn't he?
I haven't talked to him at all. I know he was at the last annual meeting or the reunion. And Pete, did you talk to him at that time?
Yeah, but I talked to him quite regularly. A couple weeks ago, he spent a month in Florida, month of April.
Okay,
So he's retired as a judge, but he does mediation, tries to resolve court cases. So he's doing well, yeah.
okay,
Yes.
good.
He has a daughter in Washington State and a son in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh my gosh.
And a daughter in Muskegon, I think, yeah.
I remember his wife was in my younger sister's class at St. Joe School and then at Catholic Central in Muskegon. So
Okay.
we kind of remember that. I hear from John every now and then. He sends John Mullally. He sends information over for sharing that I've gotten up on the site at various times. All right. Well, why don't we get started with some introductions? Like I said, it worked out pretty good in the past. We'll start in alphabetical order with just a brief intro of yourself, when you were in the seminary and anything else you want to add about yourself, what you're doing for the sake of those people who haven't seen you before. We'll start with Paul Banner.
Paul Banner, I'm in the class of 1966, so I was at St. Joe's from 1961 through 1966. Then went to Baltimore for 1 year, left the seminary. I live in Kalamazoo or just outside Kalamazoo, involved in a bunch of things down here.
Okay. I got part of my screen covered up, so I don't know. Is Jim Blanchard here yet?
I am.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I attended St. Joe's from 67 through 71. Then I was at Christopher House from fall of 71 through June of 73. And then I did a year at St. Mary's Seminary down in Houston, major seminary. I was down there 1 year and then left the seminary and came back to Grand Rapids, finished up Aquinas, and have worked and lived in the Grand Rapids area ever since then. Originally from Muskegon, and am retired and doing whatever whatever I need to do to stay in good graces with my wife.
Okay, how about Bill Black?
I was in St. Joe's, I think 62 through maybe 67. And when I finished up college, I moved to North Carolina, and I've been here for a long time. Retired to Raleigh 9 years ago to be closer to my grandkids.
Okay, how about Tom Dalton? Has he joined the group yet?
I am here. So can you hear me, see me?
Oh yeah, okay. I keep moving this little screen around of mine so I keep track of who's here, but who's in the waiting room. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
I'm here.
All right.
I attended
You're on.
5960, so it's only for 1 year. However, over the years, I have been somehow associated with the diocese as a part-time employee, as a contractor, a full-time employee, and I did grow up near the seminary and still live near the former seminary. So there's only been, I think, probably 5 years of my life or something that I haven't been within about a half a mile or a quarter mile of the seminary. Sometimes right there all the time. I was director of St. Henry Spirituality and Ministry Center, and then went to work for the diocese when I moved downtown also. So worked for the diocese for 15 years and retired.
Okay, Tony Foster was going to join the group. I don't see that he's with us yet. So the next one on the list is Dick Galant. Has Dick joined us?
Mute.
Dick, you're muted.
Speak up, Dick, we can't hear you.
Click in.
Okay.
Should the rest of us mute though? There's some background noise there.
It seemed to have been a good idea in the past.
Dick, why don't you count to 10? See if we can hear you, Dick. Dick, go on.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, you passed.
Okay, good. Should have done it in Latin, I guess.
Right.
Okay, I'm Dick Galant. Good to see you all. Happy May. Nothing so fair as a day in May. Greetings from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've been here, believe it or not, over 50 years. I was in the seminary and went 6 years at St. Joe's and a year in St. Mary's, and came to the University of Michigan, and in a sense never left, in the sense that I worked with a community college here, but in between I had two incredible, was located in two incredible odysseys, if you will. One was the US Army, believe it or not, during Vietnam. I ended up spending, besides Oklahoma, in Oklahoma, I spent a year in Hawaii and on Oahu. And after that, about a couple of years, I ended up 6 months in Turkey, Karamsel, Turkey, teaching for Wayne State, and then in Aviano, Italy, which were exciting experiences for me. And I spend most of my time being serving as a dean and working with community colleges. I still do consulting work. And over that period of time since I left St. Joe's, I rarely have come across a lot of people from St. Joe's from Ann Arbor, well, living in Ann Arbor, but from St. Joe's. Jack Cision, remember him? Mike Donnelly, I see occasionally. Greg Lyon, when he was here for a little bit long ago, I haven't seen him. He was living in California, I know, and then I don't know what he's doing. And currently I do some consulting for Wayne County Community College District in Wayne County. And I'm kind of eager because Sunday, my son is going to graduate from Michigan State in Broad School of Business. So excited about that. And it's great to see all of you and just learn what your lives were like, and in the time that we haven't seen, and just learn from you. So, greetings to all.
Okay, Bill Gebhard hasn't joined us yet, so next up is Dave Hooper.
Hello.
You forgot Pete Garthe.
Oh, I'm sorry, my alphabet.
Garthe goes first. No,
Okay,
Using the
Garthe
Greek
goes
alphabet, it'd be
first.
totally different.
Okay, our voices are echoing or repeating or something, so who's the tech person in our group? And I don't know if everybody else muting will correct that or not.
I see 8 people muted, so it narrows the suspects down.
That'd be Mike Murphy, Frank Marfia, come on, mute. Tom,
Okay.
Dalton. Sure. Let's see if we all mute.
Let's see if I can find the mute button.
I'm gonna not mute just because I gotta keep interjecting on stuff.
Oh, there it is.
Mike and Tom are rebellious here. They're not gonna mute.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I'm-
where is, I don't see a mute button here anywhere.
Neither do I, and I just lost the screen.
Move your mouse and you might see it. Show up at
I
the
see.
top or the bottom, depending on whether you're on a pad or a computer.
Okay, anyway, I was in St. Joe from 1960, Paul Banner, from 1960 through 1966. So, and then went to St. Mary's, Baltimore for a couple of years, dropped out, went to Peace Corps, South America, went to law school, Wayne State, practiced law, still practicing from home. 12 more cases and I'll be fully retired. I've got 3 daughters, 9 grandchildren. My wife passed away a year and a half ago, so I'm still recovering from that. Trying to keep busy. Took up pickleball, so trying to keep active and spend time watching my grandkids now play soccer and softball and baseball, and so that's a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay, now over to Dave Hooper. Unless
Now I can undo.
my alphabetization isn't what it used to be. Okay, Dave, you're up.
Sounds like I might be the old man here so far. I came to St. Joe's in 1958. Historically, to locate that, that's the year Pius XII died. Remember him? I prophetically said to myself, the church, he's the only pope I ever known, church will never be the same without Pius XII. And that was right. It's never been the same since then. John the 23rd came in after that, and you all know the story from there. I was at St. Joe's till 64. I was in the H row along with Hazard, Haydens, Hogan, the middle Hogan, Michael, and Hooper. So that represents, I think, 3 different dioceses out of four of us in a row there. I was a priest for 18 years. I've been married now for longer than that. And I have 3 children, 1 grandchild, and happily retired for about 10, 12 years and getting used to it, enjoying it more and more. I just spent a whole week at our cottage all by myself. Didn't even step out onto the grounds for 4 whole days. It was just like being back in the seminary. It was great. So, and since I missed the last meeting, I did penance and listened to the tape. So I actually did view the whole meeting, even though I wasn't present there. So I feel like I'm updated enough to be back here today. Unmute.
Okay, I think Frank Marfia is up next.
Okay, hello, guys. Frank Marfia here. I was in the St. Joe's from 60 to 66. And Jim Hannock and I volunteered, Jim doesn't remember, but I do, to go to St. Mary's Seminary in San Antonio, Texas. Actually, we attended St. Mary's University. The seminary was called Assumption Seminary in San Antonio. It was a great 2 years. I left after those 2 years and I moved to Chicago. And so I really lost touch with pretty much all of you for about 40 plus years. I didn't do it on purpose. It's just my wife and I vacation in Wisconsin every year. And the only time I went back to Michigan was occasionally for a Marfia reunion in Grand Rapids. And that was just a weekend. I'm actually at my Land of Lakes, Wisconsin home right now, my summer home. My wife, I retired in 2012 after working almost 25 years for the Head Start program, the federal program for early childhood development and education. The greatest job I ever had, actually. And I had a lot of Michigan grantees programs that I was their federal representative. My favorite program was the one in the UP, the Houghton, Michigan program, but I also had the Jackson, Michigan program, another outstanding program, and Grand Rapids was very good. So at least the latter part of my working career was very satisfying. Made a lot of friends. I Zoom every month with retiree friends from my federal job. We've got about 40 people in but only about 10 attend our monthly Zoom meeting. This is a huge irony. My siblings would be laughing right now if they heard this. I hated farming. I grew up on a fruit farm. I don't know if any of you knew that, in Fenville, Michigan, Allegan County, Michigan, and hated it. And one of the reasons I entered the seminary was to get off the farm. That and that my home life was kind of chaotic. My mother had died, and my father was a hard worker, but wasn't, his parenting skills, which I later learned from Head Start, were not good, not great at all. So that's partly why I entered the seminary. And the point I'm trying to make a long way around is that I'm planting apple trees now in northern Wisconsin. I've got 12 in my backyard here in my 15-acre parcel in Land of Lakes, Wisconsin. And I'm honchoing a community apple orchard in town where we planted 36 trees. So this is a huge irony because I hated farming, absolutely detested it. But somehow it got in my blood, and that's what I do, a lot of gardening and farming in retirement. I'll pass the baton on to somebody else.
Bill,
Okay,
did you skip over Betsy? Betsy Greenwald there?
where, I gotta look at my list here. All right, we'll go to Betsy Greenwald. And please introduce yourself.
You can tell who's boss in this house. Paul Greenwald. I was at St. Joe's from September of 64 through December of 69. Graduated in the high school class of 68. Finished up at Aquinas after leaving the seminary. Went on to Detroit College of Law and practiced law here in Grand Rapids for 40 years. Retired in January of 2016. So I beat you, Pete.
Okay, I think next up is Mike Mulcahy. I'm saying he's not here with us, so we'll go to Mike Murphy.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm a graduate of St. Joe's of 1966. After that, I finished out at Michigan State for 68. Went into the Army at 68, and of all things, they sent me to Monterey, California to learn Chinese. And so that's what I did during the war there. After that, I've had an advertising career, which is very, very good. And I've been very, very lucky at it. And in the last 5 or 6 years, I've joined the local community college for advertising and for writing. And that's pretty much what I've been about there.
Mike, did you say writing or rioting?
Writing, WRITING. Teach these poor people to write well.
Okay, Stas had a last minute family thing. You might join us a little bit later. And so now on to Ed Swart. Ed,
Yes.
would you explain who you are and what your relationship is with the other Swart?
Well, I'm Bob's brother. He was a classmate of many of you. I'll talk about Bob first, and then I'll talk about myself. Bob also became an attorney. I think your class did really, really well on that thing. He went to the University of Michigan, became an attorney, moved to Washington, D.C., spent his entire career in Washington, D.C. Bob had a stroke at age 54 and had difficulty working thereafter. And at about age 60, he came down with lymphoma and did everything he could to fight it until he died just shortly before his 68th birthday in 2014. So we miss him a lot.
Yeah.
I was at St. Joe's 2 years behind him and most of you. Started in 1962 and left in 1967. Went from there to the University of Michigan, Dick, following my brother and staying with my brother while we were both there while he was in law school, finished my undergrad work and moved in with Bill Block in Detroit when I went to Wayne State, started graduate school there, finished with a doctorate in clinical psychology. Spent a year of a residency in Chicago at Northwestern University, eventually ended up for a short while back in Detroit, and by the end of the 70s in Holland, Michigan, have spent my career since then throughout Ottawa County, first as a county employee and then as a private practicing psychologist. Closed that practice in 2013, but still do consulting to some of the courts and the county mental health programs in Ottawa County and Allegan County, and some supervision of some private practitioner people. So I'm still working a bit, but not a lot. An avocation, I've spent time with, started with the Rotary Club of Holland, became involved in its international youth exchange program and with Rotary clubs throughout the district and throughout the world, eventually took charge of the International Youth Exchange Program that Rotary does through Western Michigan and Northern Ontario. Then became the district governor for Rotary International, which led to some international travel and some incredible relationships with people who do the same thing worldwide, who have this passion for doing good in the world. In partnership with others, and finished that job a couple of years ago, but I'm still involved in the local Rotary Club and a number of initiatives involving world peace, ridding the world of polio, and a few other minor little things. I was married to my first wife. Yes?
When Ed was living with us, we were living in downtown Detroit, and right near the ballpark, and Ed had his briefcase stolen out of his car one night with his dissertation in it.
My master's thesis.
That was before floppy disks and storage on the computer. So even though he was devastated, he survived.
I survived.
Ed, I'd like to ask you a question. I know I was mentioning people that I ran into, and by the way, I forgot to mention Frank Unger, by the way, but this one, Carol, your sister.
Yes.
Where is she now? Because the reason I encountered her, she helped my dad when he was at Blanchard Hospital and had an ostomy. And she also went to school with my sister. And she was wonderful health aide, and I just wondered how she's doing now.
She is recently retired from Spectrum Health. She went on and I don't know at what point you had encountered her, but she was an infectious disease nurse practitioner at Spectrum for a number of years in her later career. It's amazing how we cross paths all over the place.
You know, that reminded me, I mean, I lived in Detroit at the same time. You guys who were going to law school down there, were there in, it's amazing. Here we were just kind of sailing by one another, probably never even thought that there'd be somebody from our pasts in the great throngs there somewhere. And when you said that you were down at the ballpark, that was the old Tiger Stadium down
Absolutely.
there. And, you know, I was down there a few times. Incredible. It's here we were just sort of floating past one another. What was that, like icebergs passing in the night? So
Bill?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I don't know what years you are exactly, but I was probably floating around Sacred Heart Seminary for the philosophy years that I was there after leaving St. Joe's. It was 65 and 66, so I don't know what years you guys are talking about, but I wouldn't have run into you on the street, but I might have been in town anyway.
I moved to Detroit in 70. That's when I moved in with Bill and Mary.
Okay,
Ah, okay.
long gone by then, okay.
All righty. I think Frank Unger is up next. Frank, got to turn on your microphone.
Hey, I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Next to you, the illustrious Bill Yagerlener. But I started the seminary along with Dick Galant. We were both there from 59 through 65. And I also went to St. Mary's in Baltimore. And he and I were the last two of the class, that we started with at 59. Like many of you, I went into the service after that, ended up in Korea for about 1.5 years. And then I came back and then bounced around for a while doing a few different things and ended up being a corporate industrial accountant, if you will, and eventually became a controller. I graduated from Grand Valley in accounting and finance. Basically, I specialized in setting up accounting systems from beginning to end, I retired in 62 and then did taxes for 10, 12 years. And stopped doing that when the partnership I did work with, dissolved themselves. Currently, I belong in a couple choirs, but we don't sing anymore because of the pandemic, and I participate in a couple of organizations and that, but basically I'm retired.
Where do you live, Frank?
I live in the Kalamazoo area, just south of I-94 as it splits across. It's really Portage, Michigan, but most people more likely remember the word Kalamazoo,
Okay, I think Al Wahmhoff is up next.
Okay, as a lot of you know, I graduated St. Joe's in 66 with many of you. Went on to St. Mary's in Baltimore for those 2 years to 68. Went to St. John's Seminary in Plymouth for 3 years of theology. That was my worst subject ever. So I decided to take a year off and continued doing what I had done summers every year from St. Joe's on, working construction survey work, which ended up being my career for 46 years. I stumbled in that by accident and kept doing it. You know how much math we had, and you had to have trigonometry for survey work and longhand calculations because handheld calculators were just being invented at the time. But it worked out fine. I had a math mental non-challenge. In other words, I loved it. And I did it all sorts of crazy stuff like layouts on the outside of vessels and refineries where a 50-inch line would go through a 31-foot diameter tank at an angle, and you'd have to figure out what shape that egg-shaped hole would be so they could cut it in there. But anyway, so then because I was doing construction survey work, your job is to put yourself out of business by getting the job done and going on to the next one. So I worked in Michigan, build those 2 nuclear power plants on Lake Michigan at South Haven and down there in Bridgman, which is south of Benton Harbor. And from there, went up by Kalkaska near Traverse City, did a natural gas recovery plant, went over to Midland, Michigan, where they were going to do a nuclear plant that never did turn out to be one. From there, I went to northern Minnesota, 200 miles north of Minneapolis, to do some work on the Iron Range. just as the Edmund Fitzgerald went down with all those pellets in it. Everybody mourned that. And then from there, I went to Detroit, Michigan on the Rouge River, the Detroit Edison plant, 9-story conventional power plant, 200 feet above the ground, walk out on ice and planks to figure out what's wrong with that tower, why that thing won't fit in there. And from that job, which was 2 years long, but you just hear background noise. I'm not sure what's going on in the next room. But anyway, went on to East Liverpool, Ohio, and then from there to the iron, what do you call it, the steel mills on the bottom of Lake Michigan in Chicago, the old Chicago U.S. Steel plant as it was closing, and eventually got sent out here to Iowa to a nuclear power plant for maintenance. And now we bought a home in the tip of Michigan, as close to Chicago as you can be and still be in Michigan, 2 blocks into Michigan in New Buffalo. We're moving there in early June. And I'm retired since 11, and my wife was a special ed teacher. She's retired, and bless her soul, she followed me all over the country and got her teaching certificate in all those states so that she could keep children educated. She has so much patience, especially putting up with me.
All right, next up is Jerry Willing, who just joined us. Jerry, we're just in phase 1 of our program, just introducing ourselves, when you were at the seminary, and anything else you want to tell us about what's going on in your life or worth sharing.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I was at St. Joe's from, I think, 55 to 61, graduated, then went to St. Paul, Minnesota for 2 years of philosophy, along with Dennis Wasco. Really enjoyed that. And then went to St. John's Provincial Seminary, where Al had been also, and I was there for 3 years. And had the same struggle with theology too, because our text was Van Noort, was traditional Thomistic regressive theology. At the same time, the Vatican Council was going on with these really neat theologians from all over Europe. So I was reading them and giving those answers on my quizzes and final exam and flunked theology. And then I became operator of the St. John's Seminary bookstore, and I'd gone to a conference in New Orleans where I heard Robert Hoyt, at that time the editor of the Kansas City Catholic Reporter, had this idea of forming the National Catholic Reporter, saying that all diocesan papers are under the control of the bishop. We need something that is not under episcopal control. And so I put all kinds of, the first edition when it came out, I put it all over the bulletin board advocating that we ought to subscribe, because if we're going to be leaders as clergy in our parishes, we need to know what issues and concerns and struggles people are going with. And then also I had been a real serious student, very sober and intellectually oriented and mildly depressed. And I came across Teilhard de Chardin, and it catapulted me out of adolescent depression into excitement of being alive. And we were forbidden at those years to read Chardin, but I read everything I could get my hands on. Then eventually I was kicked out of St. John's Seminary with a group of about 10 others by the Sulpician Fathers. And I was in a state of shock because I was totally unprepared for being dismissed. And I asked in writing, will you give me the reasons I'm being dismissed or thrown out of the seminary? Number one, he pursues ideas beyond his intellectual abilities, related to my pursuing Chardin. I actually agreed with that criticism because I had to read several times to understand Chardin's thinking. Number two, he has an NCR mentality, always questioning authority. And I said, well, that's the National Catholic Reporter. It's helpful to question authority. Number three, he's lacking in prudence. And they didn't give me any examples of any of my prudence deficiencies. But anyway, I left the seminary severely depressed because I was unexpected, got a job in construction, then eventually became a child welfare worker in Saginaw, got a scholarship, went to University of Michigan, got my master's in social work, and a 2-year commitment to work in the mental health field. So I was hired by Northville State Hospital, was placed in downtown Detroit. And I and a group of people, we got federal funding to start up a crisis center. And so I was moved from Northville Hospital to downtown Detroit. And Msgr. Clement Kern at that time was on our board of directors. And so I used to have weekly lunches with him. And he'd bring me clients routinely. Eventually we cut the recidivism rate from Northville Hospital from 60% down to 6% and got a $1 million grant to start a comprehensive community mental health center. And so I was there, and then I taught part-time at Wayne State University, and then he left there, and then I got a teaching job at Michigan State University teaching crisis intervention, which is what I had been doing, and subsequently ran into a nurse who I fell in love with, and we eventually got married, and we were married for 30 years, and she was just a delightful person. I felt so lucky to share my life with this exciting, vibrant, enthusiastic, fun-loving person. I had been a borderline workaholic, and she taught me how to switch gears and enjoy just being alive. And we had so much fun together. And then sadly, she developed Alzheimer's. She was about 10 years older than I, but she looked 10 years younger than I did. So we looked great as a couple. So I became a caretaker for 10 years. And I jokingly say, as a nurse, she coached me how to become a caregiver. And so she passed away about 6 years ago. So I've been grieving her loss, but simultaneously, I'm now conducting a caregiver support group that I was a member of as I was learning how to become a caregiver myself. And I'm currently in private practice for the last 40 years as a marriage counselor. And I'm still doing my work part-time. My clients are afraid I'm going to retire. And I said, as long as I can see you and hear you, I'll be available. And so I love my work. There's been an explosion of knowledge about the skills needed to maintain a really great marriage. And it's more, rather than marriage counseling, it's more like I'm doing marital education, marital coaching. And so I'm just doing really well. Got both my shots I go jogging every morning for about 45 minutes, feel oxygenated and energized, and overall doing quite well.
Jerry, going to Bill's comment about passing each other in the night, I was part of putting together that grant proposal for that mental health center with Father Kern. When I was, Bill and I were living right between the church and the school at Father Kern's church right downtown.
Holy Trinity. Yeah.
Holy Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
You're muted, Bill. Unmute yourself, Bill.
Bill Black.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
The reason we moved there was because of Monsignor Kern, and we just love the guy. After we left Detroit, we went to Lansing, and our first son was Isaac Kern Block, and he came to Lansing for the baptism of our first son. He was a terrific guy.
Yeah, he was a courier of ours in Detroit. Very saintly man.
Indeed.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry, wait just a minute. Jerry, did you know a guy named Lauren Hoffman in Detroit, social work, Wayne State Clinic?
Yes, I occasionally would see him at meetings. We'd go to Lafayette Clinic for educational workshops, and I ran into him. I didn't know him well, but we were colleagues.
Okay, very good. He, for Al Wahmhoff and Paul Banner's sake, he was Gus Gershesky at St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore. And then he married a woman named Hoffman and took her last name. So I'm, yeah, still friends with him. So that's neat. Very good.
Mhm.
All right, Bill Gebhard has entered the building. We're finishing up our introductions of everybody. So who the heck are you anyway?
Oh, I just got back from Florida, back to Michigan, and I'm not sure that I made the right choice. But be that as it may, I finished my winter sojourn and come back to find that I've got a lot of yard work to do. But what are we doing? Just I'm sorry I'm late.
At this point, we're just introducing ourselves, and everybody except me has already introduced themselves, who they are, when they were at the seminary, and any other helpful or useful or useless information you want to share about yourself.
Class of '66, and I'll bow to you, Bill. You're the better man than I, so I'll let you finish up.
All right, couple things. Class of 1966, and when I left the seminary in '66, went down to Wayne State University in Detroit, got a bachelor's in history, went from to teaching for 9 years in the Detroit school system while pursuing a master's in history at Wayne State. Then got more involved in a lot of community-based organizations and community development issues and nonprofit management. I worked at a lot of other kind of startup programs. Interestingly enough, I did run a program for homemaker to figure out how to get homemaker home health services to families of people with family members who had developmental disabilities. And so I interfaced, that was around 1980 to 1983. So I had sort of a passing acquaintance with some of the people in the Wayne County community mental health system. And I recall at that time that a lot of agencies that were dealing with people with developmental disabilities, they were more familiar with people who were retarded, people who had autism, the autism spectrum, and they didn't want to take on providing home care services to families of people who were mentally ill. And that created a big ruckus. That was at the time when they were in the process of starting to close down Northville Hospital. I went out there on a couple of excursions just to kind of get a sense of what was going on in the mental health field. Because, at that time, even people with who were mentally retarded were hospitalized at Northville and, of course, other places around the state of Michigan, Traverse City, Kalamazoo. So that was where our ships, again, sort of passed one another. I ended up, I worked at Brighton Hospital in fundraising and community awareness issues, then went over to Operation Able of Michigan, who was responsible for helping people who were older. And by that time, older unemployed people were considered anybody who was 45 and up was eligible for federally funded training purposes. Now, 45, my gosh. A lot of people who were at that end of the age spectrum didn't consider themselves to be older. And so we worked on getting fundraising in place and community awareness and of addressing people in that age group from 45 really to about 70. And then left there, gosh, I can't even remember how long I was there, but ended up doing a lot of private contracting consulting work with other small to mid-sized agencies, and pretty much retired, except that I still do have one major client, Show Me Detroit Tours. I maintain all of their social media, and so that's what's keeping me up to date, especially in the IT field. Had a couple of comments. I remember several times some of our, especially the class of 66, mentioned that, well, I think it was, now, somebody was learned Chinese. Now, who in the mentioned that this
Mike
evening?
Murphy, that's me.
Oh, okay. And there were a couple of guys that were over in Turkey. Did you learn Russian while you were there? Didn't somebody mention learning Russian?
Stas.
That was Stas.
Oh, okay.
Popowich. Yeah.
Right.
Bill,
I was curious.
Bill?
Yeah.
Regarding Turkey, Stas was right on the, I can't remember, the Black Sea. Hello, Bill?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, at that time, the government was still putting satellites over the world, all right? And so the Air Force basically had, and it wasn't NATO, it was called Tusklog. It was a Turkish acronym for something. Anyways, Stas was at the Black Sea, right on the edge of the Black Sea. Now, I was in Turkey also, but I was on the other side of of Turkey, which is a pretty expansive country. I didn't get to see a lot of it. I was in the area that was known in Greece, in Greek times as Ionia, which is where it was kind of the center of the Greek culture and everything that like Hippocrates and all those people came, that's where they came from, and then went into Athens and that. So it's a ways from Greece. But it was, I saw the ruins of where they had the Council of Nicene. I was about 70 miles south of Istanbul. And I was the closest individual in the country of Turkey. Bill Gebhard had to fly to Florida, but I was right basically in my backyard, the only golf course in the country. And it was literally on the Sea of Marmar, that goes into Istanbul through the Bosphorus and into the Bosphorus. It was very educational, and I love seeing it. So that was the experience, but I did not learn Russian. I envy Mike because I've been to Monterey, and I was one place when I was in the Army I'd love to have gone to, because they have one of the best language schools in the world there in that's one of the few places in Monterey where it's right along close. Again, Bill should have gone out there where they have the 5 great golf courses Pebble Beach is along there right on the ocean. It's called the 17-mile drive. It's a national park, and a lot of stories on there, but it's a really beautiful area. That's where the bay there is where John Denver lost his life with an airplane, tried to fly his airplane in the sea. They have a tremendous aquarium there, right on the ocean there. So anyways, that's kind of my story. Give you a response about Turkey.
Okay. Now, I guess this would be addressed then to Mike Murphy. Are you still fluent in Chinese, or are you able to read it, or what?
No, okay, second first. They had 2 courses. One for the guys who were reading documents. The other was for active interpretation. And I was in the active interpretation one. I can't read it very well. I know the men's room from the ladies' room, but that's pretty much all.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's right. Only the necessities, yeah.
I'm just amazed when I listen to everybody's conversations that the broad spectrum of experiences that we've had, and I'm getting the sense that what we have experienced is practically identical to classes before and after us. It's just amazing when you think of our narrow perspective on life for various years in the seminaries. It was really interesting to see what we did in the not the afterlife, but the life after our time in the seminary. I had sort of a flashback when you mentioned those who were down in Detroit. I do recall that it had to have been like in 67, maybe 68. A couple of guys from our class of 66 came down to meet up with me in Detroit. I don't even remember. I think Mike McKenna was one of them. And it seems like there was somebody else as well. And so we went, I lived about, maybe a mile from downtown Detroit, up near Wayne State's campus. And when we got into the downtown, people were just absolutely amazed. They looked at these skyscrapers, and I said, "Now don't look up. That'll mean that's a tell-all that you're a sightseer, a tourist. Just sort of blend in." But that didn't stop people from looking up there. It was, small town people going into the big city for the first time. I recall when one of the first things I did in my final year before graduation in 68 was, before that, I went into the Hudson's department store, which at that time I think was 14 or 15 floors, and just rode up the escalator. My God, never seen anything like that in my life. Growing up in Muskegon, we had 2 department stores downtown that had escalators. It actually had a second floor to them. And it was such a thrill as a kid to be able to take an escalator up and down. Us little kids would just go crazy with that. But then to come to the big city and here's 14 floors of escalators was just incredible. Now, one other thing that I just had a question about what people's feelings is about recording these sessions. Here's what has happened. There's a limit on the amount of megabytes of storage that we can have at Zoom. And so I exceeded that several times, and I only knew about it because I happened to go over and just check for old recordings. And so I decided, at that time I dumped the first couple that I had been recording. And then in February, March, and April, I took those sessions, maybe it was January as well, but I put them up on YouTube as a way of preserving a record of those sessions. And I just wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable with doing that. It opened, because it's on YouTube, it sort of opens the sessions up to a greater audience. I don't know that anybody would actually go and try and look us up. But anyway, it's there. And the thing that I found interesting was in working with all of our alumni over the last couple of years, this is the first time that people, for the future at least, will actually see who we were, aside from just our class pictures and some of the slide programs that people like Bob Lazinski put together. And from a historian's point of view, I think it's kind of nice to be able to see, faces and voices and pictures to people. So I kind of throw that question open. I kind of assumed that people felt comfortable with that situation. If you don't, we can figure out another way of making those available. The sessions are pretty large in megabytes, and so it's difficult to send them by email to people. But there's such ways around that in different software packages where I could just send them out to people by a transfer process. So I throw it open to discussion. What's your feelings about that? Anybody?
I think you're doing just fine, and I think that's an easy way to do it, and I would keep doing it.
I see some heads nodding. I see nobody seems to have left the session, so.
No.
We have no privacy anymore anyway, so.
Right.
I was going to ask if any of the lawyers have concerns.
Oh, no.
I think most people are pretty familiar with YouTube, Bill, so I would say that's a good forum to house these conversations.
All right, well, I'll keep on.
How do they get indexed? How would people find them, Bill?
Well, I've put up on YouTube a channel called St. Joe Memories. And in that, I have broken out the different kinds of programs. Several of them were recorded by Bob Lazinski. He put together a slide program that's a two-parter. And then he also recorded Mikado, and he recorded a couple of liturgical programs, including the last one I put up was the class of 1961 graduation mass. And I was trying to figure a little footnote in there. I still would like to know how the heck he managed to record all these things. Especially the mass from June of 1961 when he was in the group of graduates. So I have that up there, and then the latest batch of stuff that I know I have it also in there. The program that Samaritas put together for their grand opening of their new housing. And I also put up some of the reunions related to the class of 61, including a mass that was celebrated. I can't remember off the top of my head which year it was. It was Bob Swart was celebrating the mass. And again, somehow somebody managed, Bob Lazinski was conducting like the group in the mass. I think it was maybe John Mullally that had a camcorder or something that recorded the mass, and a little get together. I think it must have been after the mass. So that's the kind of stuff that's up there under the page name or the group name of St. Joe Memories. And that in the last couple of months, at least my cable provider, Comcast or Xfinity, has now opened YouTube up for free to people. And so as soon as I heard that, I wanted to see whether the stuff that I had put together under just a regular YouTube was there. And sure enough, it was. And I was absolutely astounded, especially when I looked at Bob Lazinski's two-part videos that he put together. When you see that on a big screen, it's just incredible the technology that he was using back whenever he put that together. It was really nice, kind of appreciating seeing it in a large screen. So if you go to look for it on YouTube via your cable provider, you do a search for St. Joe Memories, ST space JOE space Memories, and up will pop. You'll see a big S. That's the the Google address symbol for our group, and you click on that, and you'll see all of the different. I think they're called playlists, showing what I got up there, including the most recent editions of our Zoom sessions. So that's where it is and how you get to it. And I was, I think in the last mailing that I sent out, I sent a link to where you find the Zoom session thing for people who want to kind of go back and refresh their memories or hide themselves in shame over what they said over the last couple of months. So that's where things are, and as long as people are still comfortable with it, I'll continue to do it. And here comes, I just see Stas is entering the room.
Okay.
Yep, and there's I think pretty sure that's Janice getting Stas all set up.
He's coming.
He's coming. Oh, you'll stand in for him.
Hello, gentlemen.
You'll do it. And
hello.
We'll take about anybody. By the way, there was somebody briefly that came in there. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was somebody named O'Connor.
Yeah.
And I thought it was another one of those situations where, you know, the wife's name was up there. Whoever that was, just had that picture of that woman. They decided this wasn't for them. I don't know if they stumbled into us or or what. Stas,
hello.
Are you there with us?
No, I think we need it. Yeah.
No, he's not here.
Okay, Stas, what we were doing is just finishing up right now the introductions of ourselves. When were you there? What happened afterwards? Anything you want to share with the group about yourself or your experience? And then we're going to go into the Frank Marfia had a point that he wanted to discuss with, or have the group discuss, and then we'll kind of throw it open to everybody to start slugging away. So Stas, you're up.
Okay, I was class of 66. From there, went into the military for 4 years. In the military, I went to Texas, basic training, then Syracuse University, then back to Texas for radio school, so to speak, how to be a spy. And then went to Turkey. While in Turkey, got to the Holy Land on a religious retreat. That was pretty interesting. And one of the cool things I thought is that going down the road, we were on our way to Capernaum, and there were burned out trucks, tanks, stuff like that along the road, and kind of asked the tour guy about it. He said that was from the 6-Day War, and they leave it there as a memorial to those who died and a warning to the enemy that they will get you. And I talked with somebody who recently went to Israel on a religious retreat, and they said those trucks and tanks are still there. They haven't been removed, at least in that area. From Turkey, went to northern Japan. Got out in the summer of 1970, went to Michigan State, got a degree in psychology, went to Michigan, got a degree in social work. Worked in a clinic for a few years, then went into the what we call the intermediate school district, which is actually the go-between between Lansing and the local school district. So that the policies coming out of Lansing go to the intermediate. They come up with plans and stuff. I worked in what we did as a team to evaluate children under age 3 for special education. In the last several years, that has involved in a number of things from the federal government. But basically, we look for a special ed under 3 or a community program that could help these kids under 3. Worked there for 34 years or so, and been retired for 10 and a half years. So that's about what I've done.
One question that I put out earlier, when especially people like our classmate Mike Murphy were talking about their work and his work translating or for the, I think it was the armed services, wasn't it, Mike? He learned Chinese or bare bones Chinese. And your language, learning Russian and using, are you still aware or able to speak? Or
now I have some classmates from the military who have kept up that stuff. One guy got out after 4 years and didn't like outside the military job-wise and stuff. So he went back in, worked for the CIA till he retired probably 12 years ago. So he not only was he involved, he also did airborne. So he was out doing that. He knew French because he was born in Canada. So he also went to Germany and then was flying out of Germany. So he was kind of an interesting character. Twice he went to Australia, and the base in Australia is dead nuts center. And the first time he went, there was nothing there. So there's a little compound, and they're all self-entertaining. And the second time he went there, civilization had grown up around it, but he has used that. One of the guys, another guy, kept it up, went to work for Boeing as an engineer, then started his own company of doing something with communications and stuff. And when the Russian what was I going to say? Spaceship, but the one flying around. There were some problems.
The space station.
Yeah, the space station. When there were some problems on it, and nobody knew what to do or something, and they contracted him, and with his knowledge and stuff, they were figured out the engineering questions and stuff like that. Another classmate was in Turkey. Still uses his Turkish as much as possible. Communicates with some people who still speak Russian. And so when we had a little get together back in 2010, some of the guys were carrying on some conversations on that. I have not kept it up. I couldn't tell you anything. The one who went Chinese, probably very similar to us. You learn a lot of phraseology and stuff. And with the Russians, you could almost plan on what they were saying. They're so scripted in what they're allowed to say over the air. You could write out the 2 a.m. check, because it's ground to ground information. So they check all that stuff, the weather, the wind, stuff like that. I mean, you could fill it all out and leave those blanks, and they would come and tell you exactly what everything was. One of the most, and I'm still.
What was your question, Bill? Excuse me, Bill, what was your question? Is he still fluent in Russian?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
But one of the interesting things is you may.
The answer is yeah.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things is I kind of followed the SR-71, and it's in the papers and this and that and movies and that. Saw one up close in Kalamazoo. Once they shut down the program, Kalamazoo was able to get one of the planes. And it's at the little airport, their little museum, Battle Creek, whatever that is. Battle Creek, Kalamazoo. So
I think that's the Air Zoo. Is that?
Yes.
Air Zoo?
And one of the interesting things that it is fast, and trying to copy, because what we do is we tape record it, but also you do it by handwritten stuff. At least initially, in case something went wrong, you would start passing on the information to those above you. But they would see it coming on their radar and be telling the people, the stations down the line, to be ready for it, because it was so fast. They would get just one location out of it, and it was gone. So that was, so it was fun following that. Other than that, we were pretty quiet. Even in Japan, we were 26 miles from the Russian border, and nothing exciting, no Pueblo, no nothing like that. So it was a different life, and I still keep in Christmas cards with a couple of the guys, but that was my life. Thank you.
Mike Whalen has joined the room. Mike, we're just finishing up an introduction of ourselves. When you attended the seminary, I can't recall whether you were part of the graduating class of '61 or anything else that you want to say about yourself, or what happened in the years following the seminary.
Well, let's see. I didn't graduate in '61. I left one semester before. There was a spotted Jerry Welling down there, and he's on here tonight, but we're the two old guys in the group. And I think the oldest of most of these names I don't recognize at all. But I did go to Aquinas College, got a master's also from Western Michigan in hospital administration, and worked in hospital laboratories for 41 years. Let's see, I was married for 31 years to a great lady. She passed away from breast cancer at age 64. So I've just been single and living up north in a place I sold a little while ago, and residing in Grand Rapids here completely now.
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah?
Did you go to St. Thomas?
Yeah, of St. Thomas Parish.
I remember your family. I'm Dick Galant. You were older, but I remember you.
Oh yeah, Galants. I remember Galants. Yeah.
Yeah, you had more. I'm just sorry about the. It's amazing, but you had there were like 4 or 5 kids in your family or something.
There's
like
7
that.
total. 7
Yeah.
kids total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nice seeing you. Excuse me.
Oh, great. Nice
amazing.
seeing you too.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. As I mentioned, Frank Marfia brought up a subject that he wanted to discuss with the group about whether or not or the feasibility of having an in-person reunion this year or next. So Frank, I'll let you take it over and give us your thoughts. And
Hi everyone. I think it's time. I'm guessing that we're all fully vaccinated. Maybe not all, but most of us are fully vaccinated. So what I'm proposing is that we give it some more thought. We won't decide today, of course. I'd like to shoot for September. We could do it outdoors. I think we should do it outdoors, any kind of gathering. I'm recommending that we do it in some kind of public park where there are public bathrooms and an overarching pavilion or some kind of structure that may be open to the air, but at least there would be a roof from any kind of rainy elements going on. My family reunion, although there wasn't one last year, for the last 6 or 8 years, it happens at a park in about 10 miles west of Sparta, where there is a pavilion, and we're only, one of my cousins rents the pavilion for, I think it's for half a day. I honestly don't know the cost. I don't remember the name of the park. I apologize. It's very convenient. It's, and the bathroom is 100 yards away. It's a public bathroom. I admit that would be a concern for some of you, but I think we really do need a bathroom wherever we gather. We could bring our own food so that we wouldn't have to go to a restaurant, although that would, maybe by September, a restaurant would be a doable alternative also. Since I've been fully vaccinated, I met 2 friends. Albert Wahmhoff and I had breakfast together. When was it, Albert? About 3 weeks ago? We met,
probably more like 2 weeks ago, but each of us drove 2 hours.
Yeah, we each drove 2 hours to a midpoint.
Frank went west and I went east, and we met.
We met around 7:30 at a restaurant that wasn't crowded at all, and the good news was that the servers were all had full face masks on. It was a nice meeting, Al. I really enjoyed so we shared family news and our histories, and Albert and I were in grammar school together for 8 years, almost 8 years, 6 years anyway. And then the 6 years at St. Joe's. So we had a long history together, and I really lost touch with pretty much all of you. When I left the seminary in '68, the San Antonio Seminary, that summer I came home and helped my father on his farm, but then I moved to Chicago. There was nothing doing at Fenville. It was just, and a classmate from Texas moved to Chicago, and so we roomed together for a year, and then when I got married, he was my best man. To me, the time that Albert and I had that face-to-face breakfast, it was I really enjoyed it a lot. We had time to share our memories and be more expansive about our work history, and so I'm hoping that some of you, I don't think all of us could come. I know aren't there some people here in Virginia, not Galant, but can't remember. Hammond, is it Hammond?
Jim Hammond, yeah.
Lives in Virginia. Hannock lives in Los Angeles. Jim Hannock lives in Los Angeles. So obviously a whole bunch of people won't come. But if we could get 7 or 8 at this outdoor gathering, maybe we could at least at some point in the day drive over separately to the old St. Joe's. If nothing else, we could walk around the building or maybe go into the main entrance and see what used to be the chapel.
Is there room out and back that Samaritas would let us have a reunion?
We'd have to rent a tent down there,
on the
right?
ball field? Yeah, rent a tent, put it on the ball field.
I don't know, actually. I don't know. Bill, do you have any idea if that would be doable?
I don't really know.
Who can find out?
Yeah.
Sounds like a subcommittee to me.
Your committee? You're committing it, Pete?
Does anybody have any objections to this idea of a gathering?
No.
Well, maybe Tom Dalton, but I was also wondering, Garfield Park isn't very far from there. And that's another possibility for the number of people you're talking about, because it's basically down the street.
I mean, are we talking a dozen people? Are we probably maybe talking a dozen? Bill Gebhard, how far away are you from Grand Rapids?
Pardon me?
I'm up there quite often, so.
Oh, you are? Okay, that wouldn't be a problem, huh?
And according to the latest information, the state will be completely reopened as of June 15th.
Oh, okay.
They're
So
basing
that's,
that on having 70% of the population inoculated.
that's
That
pretty
means you
good.
got to talk to all your friends and make sure they get inoculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are a number of places up there. There's always John Ball Park too. That
Oh, yeah, that's right.
uh,
Is there an outdoor covered something?
yeah, they've got pavilions and a number of things there.
Okay. People were probably still going to be nervous, and so I'm sure not everybody's going to come. But if we could get 8 or 10 or 12, I would come.
Frank, we've got 17 people on this call right now, and
That's
most
true.
of us have got spouses, and there are only 2 of you that don't live in the state of Michigan. So it seems to me we can get a lot more than this.
We could, and that would be another question. I think we would want our spouses to come, right? And they would want to come probably. That's
Yeah,
something.
that the one that we held there that Norb Bufka and some of the other of his classmates put together, what, 2018? Was
Mhm.
that it?
Yep.
Spouses were there, and that was kind of interesting. It was sort of, I think, sort of an eye-opening experience for a lot of them to hear about some of the things that we recalled from our days. But yeah, I like the idea of having spouses there, and I like that, especially that Garfield Park. I don't recall exactly what I've heard it mentioned that the seminary is within that, the greater Garfield Park neighborhood or something like that.
The Garfield Park is about, it's less than a half a mile west of the old seminary
Well, that's
ground.
pretty close. That's close.
And they do have, I think, a pavilion. I don't know that it's very big. Restrooms are not nearby. I think they have them, but I don't think they're nearby. And I'm not sure if they charge, if you want to reserve the pavilion for something, there's probably a charge for it.
There
but
probably is a charge. Yeah, there probably is. Well, I'm willing to throw $100 into the pot, or maybe even more. It's worth it for me to have some kind of protection in case the elements are bad.
Yeah, and I know in the case of my wife's family that has a reunion, they try every other year up in Kelowna, Michigan, near Manistee. They just rent a couple of porta-johns up there for their thing. It can't be all that expensive. I'm not a porta-john guy, but that would be one way of dealing with the issue of restrooms.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money to.
But even if it were $500, people were to contribute 50 or 20, we probably would cover it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to help out with that too. So.
Or is a possible option that maybe there is a parish that might be willing to host it. I know Monsignor Terry Stewart is.
Oh, that would be an idea.
I don't know how many others are. Of course, he's a little ways northwest of Grand Rapids, but is a parish a possibility?
Oh, would they have they would have some kind of a hall or that we could meet in, or would it be outdoor on their grounds?
I think Sparta, Holy Family Sparta has some kind of hall. I'm not all that familiar with it. It's been a while since I've been there.
Yeah, I think when we held that last one, it was, I forget which, who was actually the host.
It was Dennis Morrow, wasn't it? I think it was Dennis.
Paul, I think you were.
He was at St. Peter Paul.
Yeah, that was Dennis Morrow. He's gone.
Right, yeah, but we were able to do it in their gym and lunchroom because it was in August and there wasn't any activity that would have interfered or with that. So
wasn't that a big crowd, Bill? Wasn't that a big crowd when you had
Yeah, it was pretty big crowd. I think, as I recall, there might have been.
But it was all classes.
It was all classes, right?
Oh, there were more than 50 or 60 people.
There were just over 100.
Oh, okay.
About 110, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right. And I thought it was having it in Grand Rapids was pretty comfortable for, or convenient for a lot of people. People like me who down in Southeast Michigan, we had to make it an overnight deal to get up there and back, but we were willing to do that. I like especially the idea of having it outdoors for one thing, just because of the issue of the virus and all that kind of stuff. And I like having it near the seminary so that some of us could kind of walk by and kind of poke in. I guess you got to remember that it's private property now.
Yeah, right.
And we got to respect the privacy of folks over there. But some of the people that I've dealt with, I think in their PR department and before the housing actually opened at the old main building, they were kind of amenable. They were, of course, nobody was living in there at the time, but they might be willing to, let us take maybe in small groups, take a little walk through. The only thing that I think we would recognize is the chapel. All of I'm just amazed when I look at what's going on inside there. Every possible space has been converted into an apartment. And that last thing that was on WOOD TV was, I think a lot of it, somebody mentioned that it was probably used scenes that Samaritas had put together, but it would be worth talking to them and just seeing if they would be amenable to some small groups going through it. They've been very helpful and cooperative over the last couple of years. Actually, my gosh, we're talking about 2 to 3 years now that's been going on.
I think that if you were to do that and you want to give by Samaritas, I'd recommend that you give a donation to them, because they, in doing that, I mean, I actually ended up a little bit by mistake, it's a funny story, but donating to them, and they were soliciting us because we were in the seminary.
Right.
And attended there. And doing something like that, I mean, I don't know, maybe they'd let you use their kitchen or dining hall, and you could just have a dinner there. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Right.
I haven't seen the place, but my suggestion would be that maybe you could give a donation if you do a tour and stuff like that, so that it's not like a horde of people coming in and invading. Well, we used to live here, but that kind of stuff. But I think it'd be more gracious, and maybe you keep a connection some way through them. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I
All we
did
need is
check the website for parks in Grand Rapids, and Garfield Park does have a pavilion. It does have restrooms. It does have picnic areas.
Where do you live, Bill?
I live in Battle Creek.
Oh, okay. I thought you were in Grand Rapids. Okay, I got you.
Would this
September sound like a reasonable time to wait, so that by then the COVID would be not in our rears, but it looks like the latest news is that we're going to have it for quite a while. We won't reach herd immunity. There's too many people still resistant to getting vaccines.
Yeah, I guess another follow-up thought on that was that if it was in a public space like Garfield Park, we wouldn't be putting anybody out of a loss of income if we decided at the last minute that it just wasn't feasible. If something were to come up COVID-wise or otherwise, we wouldn't be imposing on anybody. All we need is for somebody's to step up and kind of take the ball on this.
What day of the week are you thinking of, Frank?
I thought it would be, I don't know, maybe it's easier for people to come for a weekend, but since we're all retired, would a weekday be less likely to have a crowd at these parks?
Oh,
And if it's after school has started, that's another plus. I'm thinking of Friday. I'm just tossing out an idea. A weekend would be okay, but
if they play football, Michigan State, Central, and Western are going to be occupied on Saturday. They have their own porta potties set up and places to eat outside the stadium. It's organized, unbelievable.
Well, I'm just saying a week. For me, I'm retired. Is everybody? How many of you are still working? Not very many, I don't think.
I don't have a problem with Friday. Okay. And the thing is, like, and reflecting on the things that Dennis Morrow did were extremely helpful, because it was almost transparent. You walked in there, you ate a meal, you had a meeting, you saw people, and you left. And having a person, like that's in charge and all the keys and everything was very nice. This was
the meeting in 2 years ago.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
A couple of years ago.
I don't know what day of the week it was, but I think it was a weekday. But it's an hour and a half, 2 hours from Ann Arbor to there. Bill's talking about southeastern Michigan, about the same amount.
Right.
I think it was around noontime we met and everything, and so he had plenty of parking too, which was nice.
So it's for me, it's a 4-hour drive, but I lose an hour going to Michigan, but still I could easily leave at 6 a.m.
Well, maybe they'll pass the daylight saving time, so you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's true.
Was the intent for this?
No, I'm just giving
a
a hard time
for all years?
Pardon?
Was the intent to include all years of St. Joe's students, or just?
Actually, my original thought was that we wouldn't have quite as many people if we just kept it to the class of 66, but maybe that's kind of unfair because there's at least 6 of you who are not in the class of 66 on this call. I guess we should probably open it up to all seminarians. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think we should. Somebody was it Mike Gardner? Yeah. Somebody said they were. Mike Whalen. You were meeting with some of your former classmates. Is he still with us, or did he?
I think he left.
Oh, okay. He mentioned in the email to me that he was having a Zoom session with people from his class. I didn't know whether he was talking about the seminary or not, but yeah, I think just in general, we ought to throw it open and I think it would be very hard to say, yeah, you're okay and you're okay because we've been in touch with you, and just see what happens.
We have 2 of us from 2 years behind you guys here as spies, but I'm sure we would have several from our class. We've thrown around the idea of doing this. We had several of us at the one 2 years ago, and while we've talked about doing it, we just haven't gotten any further than you have. But I think if you throw the door open, we'll probably have close to as many as you will.
Okay.
What do you think, Bill? You agree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How would we handle food?
See, my preference would be we brought our own, but maybe if the COVID is in better, we're less concerned about it. We could have some kind of food delivered, but does that nervous cause people to have second thoughts if we catered it or if we?
How many of you ordered takeout?
Yeah, that's what
regularly.
And if you ordered takeout, you could do you could order food to be prepared someplace.
Prepared someplace else and delivered just for you, right? I mean,
it's popular these days. My son got a
for the
food
group.
truck.
I mean, you could have everybody's willing to chip in a few bucks and have the meal just brought in, and that, especially for those of you that are traveling quite a ways.
Right.
You may not want to try and bring potato salad that far.
Right, because wasn't the concern if you have like a bar that you're serving food, along salad bar, or veggie bar, meat bar, you're dipping into the same thing with the same spoon.
My son is on the East Coast, and he's got a church that he just did a very successful food truck come to the church on a Friday night, a couple of weeks
that's a
ago,
good
I guess
idea.
last week. And he was in charge of it. And he said, they've got food trucks all over. They did this one to see how it went. Now they're going to do one a month through the summer. It's their way of trying to get the people from their church who haven't been coming to church so much to meet on a Friday night outside and share. And it was very successful. I don't
That's
know.
a good
I would
idea.
imagine Grand Rapids has got something like that.
I like that idea.
He had a barbecue truck this time, but he said they're going to have a taco truck another time and a pizza truck another time. There are these food trucks that just do this.
Real familiar with that in our general area.
You're familiar? Okay, well.
Yeah. Seems to have worked out well around us. I who was from down in Ann Arbor. I lost track of guys. That sounds like so the options for food would be just have one place deliver it or have a food truck or whatever, but that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it does. It does sound like a good idea. So are we sort of leaning toward an outdoor venue versus a restaurant? I mean, a restaurant you just can't tell the type of crowd or the seating or.
Right.
What you're trying to do, you're better off not fooling around the restaurant.
I agree.
Because the other problem is you don't have anybody based. If you're going to Grand Rapids and you don't have anybody based there, it's really hard to interact, to answer. That's why Dennis was such an incredible host. He controlled everything in the sense of the church, the keys. And I mean that in a good way. I mean, by the way, I was just amazed that Dennis's funeral was on WOD, the local channel.
I Zoomed it with everybody in our class.
I'm sorry,
Bill. We must have had more people than were on here.
Yeah, but I mean, to have that done in Grand Rapids like that is incredible tribute to him. And so, by the way, just a little bit of a parking lot, but someone said that they had something about Father Beahan, Tom Dalton.
Yeah, I think last month somebody came up with 15 with Father, talking about
I did
things. I thought it was somebody. It wasn't the person I thought it was that brought that up. But starting in 1990 and until about 1999, diocese did have a program. It's called Catholic Outlook, and it was excuse me. It was with first. It started out with Father Robert Sirico, who was a Paulist priest, who did it for a couple of years. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened with Father Sirico and maybe the bishop. But then Monsignor Gus Ancona took over. Father Gus Ancona at the time, I think, took over. And it was done first at WOOD, which was Channel 8. They had the TV Mass. Then when the TV Mass switched to a different channel, the Catholic Outlook program switched to a different channel. But it was a recorded program, went for 15 minutes, usually is twice a month. And it was at the end of the TV Mass. The TV Mass being an hour long, they would have to cut out of the last 15 minutes of the Mass, but that was usually during communion. And there would then be a guest on there that whatever might be going on in the diocese of some interest, there would be an interview. So I was the producer of that, but would get together depending on what time of the life of the program we're talking about would get together and talk with people at the diocese and kind of come up with topics and guests to talk about. So there was a 15 with Father program kind of like that, but it was not just like Monsignor Beahan, as I recall that program. It was usually Monsignor Beahan was there, he didn't have a guest. But this was kind of a more of an interview. There was, like I said, Monsignor Ancona, prior to that, Father Sirico, who is now, again, in the Diocese of Grand Rapids and the pastor of Sacred Heart of Jesus Parish over by John Ball Park in Grand Rapids. But they hosted the program. We'd work together, finding guests, putting together questions, and twice a month we'd have a 15-minute program that would cover topics that somehow affected the people, the diocese, current things, whatever. A little talk show, discussion program.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Getting back to Frank's issue about the about me, having a meeting and or dinner type meeting or whatever get together. I think that it would be helpful to have some kind of contact. I don't know if Terry Stewart or somebody that we know, like Dennis Morrow, to help us on this personally. I think it would, because they would know kind of the switches to call and stuff. And I mean, Tom is helpful because he's there, and arranging this when you're not there is really difficult, I believe. That's just my input, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. I'd certainly be willing to be on a committee. I'm not in Grand Rapids, so I don't think I'd want to be the point person for this.
No, I don't either. And I don't want to box Tom in at all, but the only reason I raised him because he's familiar with the area and some people there. I guess Pete is in Byron Center. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm willing to do a lot of the legwork and stuff. And if Tom wants to partner up with me, that's fine. I was thinking of a catering company or something, but boy, to get an exact number of people,
yeah,
it's going to be hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think
you're right.
There might even be last minute cancellations because of people's health and.
Yeah, that's another, unknown.
Is a food truck where you line up real long line and one at a time puts an order in and individually orders and pays for it?
The kind of food truck my son was talking about doing, the advantage was that you get a certain kind of a truck. And so you don't have a lot of different kinds of orders. They've got whatever they've got, their specialty is, and they've got a lot of it. There also are two options from what I heard from him was one kind is everybody, they take individual orders and give you your thing. The other is they basically they bill you by the number of people as opposed to the number of different meals that you order. And if you've got 100 people coming, you just pay them up front, however much it is per plate, and you get as much as they've got or as much as you can eat. That would be a whole lot simpler, but maybe a little more expensive.
So the individual person doesn't go up to the window of the truck and pay individually?
You go up and you get your meal and they serve 40 people. And so they charge you a flat fee for each of those 40 people.
Well,
you can do it either way.
What I'd like to do is I'm going to go over to Garfield Park and check it out. I haven't been there in a long time and just see what the facilities are like and report back to, I don't have everybody's email. So I send everything to Bill and Bill forwards it to all of you guys.
Hey, if all else fails, we can meet at Tom Dalton's place. You're just down the street from Pete, so it's
his backyard.
On the street from, right. I used to be next door to Pete.
Yeah, we actually live next door. Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of a Friday and maybe the second Friday of the month or something.
Yeah. After Labor Day, not
after Labor Day, but when it's still warm.
Yeah.
And not interfere with any football games and stuff like that. Yeah. So a Friday, around noon or so sounds really good. Yeah.
Do you
Because I
get
can,
indulgence for that, Pete, since it's the second Friday and not the first Friday?
What was the question?
Do you get an indulgence since it's the second Friday, not the first Friday?
No, but you can eat hot dogs on Friday. Couldn't when I was a Boy Scout.
Not sure what all the indulgence rules are. Yeah.
You brought that up once. I
know. I got a new topic for us. Yesterday I heard, or today on the news, the Catholic bishops are going to vote on whether to allow Biden to receive communion.
Jeez.
Now there's a nice topic.
Oh, boy.
and
They're going to vote on it as a group?
Pelosi. It's
Yeah,
all it's Biden, but it's also the Catholic politicians.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's what they're coming out as now.
Yeah.
Yeah, today's report was the Archbishop of Los Angeles, I think, has been circulating. I don't know whether he has actually promulgated it, that without naming Pelosi, it was pretty obvious that he was referring to Pelosi and other Catholic politicians like her, that they should not be allowed to receive communion. And from what I read, this is all leading up to a meeting of the, I forget what they call it, the U.S. Council of Bishops or something like that.
That's right. They don't know that there's a crisis in the border of the migrants, but that's more important, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll check out the park and I'll talk to the city, see what the costs are and what all the arrangements are. And I'll get to Bill, hopefully maybe even by the end of the week here, and you can share it then with everybody. And
yeah, I can share it with everybody. And it's interesting, when we were trying to put together a 2020 reunion, I had set up sort of a reservation preference kind of page on the website where people could go over there and say, yeah, I'm very interested, or I'm interested but not able. Gave them a chance to get some feedback in there and give us a pretty good picture. At least it was supposed to give us a good picture of who would be likely to show up. So I can do that as well. I guess my thought was that doing it, especially when you're dealing with 150 people who you're trying to keep track of stuff by email, is getting to be, or could be, just really very difficult. So I'd be willing to help set up some sort of a reservation page, just so that we can keep track of who's interested and who's planning to attend, that kind of thing, as well as send out the updates.
One thing to think about, and if you do it at Garfield Park, and we know it's close to the seminary, everybody knows where the seminary is.
Yeah.
In the sense that wherever we're coming from, and it's still the same address, I assume. The point is that we're familiar with that, and we don't schedule it somewhere where, you know, you might get confused. That's just a thought that.
Not that we get confused.
I would hope. I mean, it's kind of, you know, in our brains and that of where we're supposed to go. But no, seriously, I'm just thinking of
right.
When you have a location, people like know exactly where they're going, and they're not going to get real confused about trying to find it.
Google it. Google it.
That's right.
Garfield Park, right?
What is the second Friday in September? Anybody have a calendar?
The 10th. It's the 10th. It's the first Friday after Labor Day.
After Labor Day. Is that too soon after Labor Day? We want to make it the 17th?
No.
No, 10th is okay? Okay. More likely to be warmer too.
You never can tell. It's Michigan.
That's true. That's true. When are you moving, Albert? You're moving to New Richmond?
Sometime early June, we think.
New Buffalo, right? You're moving to New Buffalo?
2 blocks into Michigan from Indiana.
Wow.
I'm by the casino.
No, we're about 7 miles southwest. We're between casinos, that's right. Michigan City has one too.
I went to church in New Buffalo once. They have a little church there. Yeah.
Yes, my wife was baptized there when she was an infant.
Nice little town right there on the lake. Very nice.
Yep. Yep.
Are you going to be on the water?
Less than a mile walk.
Oh, we got a beach party there at Al's house.
Don't tell anybody, but there's a swimming pool in the backyard. And I'm not talking about the big one.
I'll look into food trucks also. I like the idea if we don't have to commit to a certain number. We just tell them there'll be approximately 40 people there, and we individually are responsible for our payment. And
yeah, I agree.
We don't care how many really show or don't show, and we don't have to know exactly who's going to come.
Unless they run out of money, run out of food.
Run out of food, yeah. We got to give them some idea, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll know within, a couple of weeks before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a lunch crowd. It's not. I'm thinking that this might not be. They might not be that busy. Some of these food trucks. Well, maybe they are. Lunch in big
Lunch
cities.
is pretty busy.
Yeah, downtown. Yeah, they go downtown a lot now. Yeah.
If you did it from like 1 to 5 and they showed up at around 3 or something.
That's a good idea too.
Probably.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Probably have between their
off hours of the afternoon, and from the standpoint of the food truck's other business.
They'd like that. They'd like that.
Agree.
Can we get drink alcohol from noon to 3?
Is that allowed in the park?
Brown bag. Bring your brown bag.
That's a good question.
I'm in Grand Rapids, so maybe not, unless it's in a brown bag.
Not in the city park, you aren't.
That's right.
Pete, we'll have lemonade. Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll go over to Pete's house afterwards, and we'll have an alcohol.
Yeah, or we can all bring our own little individual coolers.
Yes.
Brown bag.
Well, it's
brown bag
BYO.
special.
That's what they do at the tailgates anyway. So
that's right.
Brown bag special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, eating around 3. That sounds good. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
This is an interjection for finding places. How many of you use Waze to navigate?
I do sometimes.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I don't. What is Waze? I guess I'm not familiar with Waze.
Waze, W-A-Z-E. Google it. It's an application. So it's a phone application, works on all the types of phones. It's run by Google. It was developed by an Israeli company, and Google bought them. If you're familiar with Google Maps and getting directions on Google Maps, Google uses the Waze technology to do that. But it's a crowdsourced navigation program. That the program, they get their information from people who are using it. And it is used by lots and lots and lots of people. So Waze has a good idea of what's going on, better than just about anybody else, probably including the police.
Frank, my experience with it, Frank, is learning it from my stepson, who uses it to go through Chicago. And I have been riding with him where it has directed us one way to get from downtown to his house. And all of a sudden it'll give you an update. And it says, oh no, get off the freeway here. There's a traffic jam up ahead. And take local roads for the next 3 miles and then get back on. And it has literally saved my wife and me a couple of times when we've been driving from here to Chicago, where 90 and 90, or 80 and 94, whatever those roads, we start going on one, and all of a sudden it gives us a switch, go to the other. We get up, we get off, we get up over the overpass and look up ahead. There's a big traffic jam. It's a parking lot. We go 1 mile, get on the other one, and we got smooth sailing right on in. But it updates moment by moment because it's getting a signal from everybody who's using it at the same time. And when traffic slows down, it lets you know.
The same thing happened with us on Google Maps the last time we went around Chicago from here. It told us there was a traffic jam ahead. Get off at the next exit. Saved us 3 hours in Northwest Indiana. The truckers had it too, but there were a couple of truckers with us.
We're gonna end at 9, right?
Yeah, we can.
A minute now.
So sounds like we got a sort of a plan, sort of like everything else in our lives. It sounds really interesting to me. I'm all in favor of some kind of a get together. Some of you guys I haven't seen at all in person, so it'll be an introduction. Some guys I saw at the 2018 reunion. All the others are all on Zooming, so you're surprised when you see everybody in person, actually. So, so Pete and I forget who else was going to work with
Frank.
Okay.
I'll help you out, Pete, if you need anything.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll report by the end of the week, I hope.
Thank you, Bill, for organizing this.
Yes.
Okay, our next
I
one
can
would
check
be
with some of our classmates, Bill, just to see how that fits in with your class. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I sent that message out to all 150 plus that I have on our database, and we picked up a couple of new folks that must have heard about it through that mailing or somehow hooked up with us this time out.
That's how I got it.
Was Mike Mulcahy in your class, Ed?
I'm sorry?
Mike Mulcahy, was he in your class?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. He'll probably come.
Yeah, Rick O'Neill put together a database of our class based on that last reunion and has a little more update to it. So I know Rick's in Ann Arbor, but he and I will get together on it.
That brings up an interesting point. He's one that we lost. I say we, Norb and I lost track of him back in 2018.
Really? Okay.
So I don't have an email address for him. He's one of the people that we just didn't have any way of reaching him. I didn't realize that you and Mike were in that same class. I didn't know anything about him, so it's a name that kept cropping up when I get ready to send a message. Said no valid address for this one.
I will send you an update.
Okay, great. All right, so our next Zoom would be sometime. I don't have my June calendar open here. Looks like maybe the 31st. No, 31st, and then
June
7th.
7th?
7th?
Is that it? The first Monday?
Yeah, first Monday.
June 7th.
June 7th.
Okay, and regardless of what I put in, it's always the first Monday. I got really mixed up because the last one was April 5th, and then when I got ready to type stuff over, I forgot to that it was May instead of April, and blah. Right after I sent it out, I thought, oh my God, I gave him the wrong day already. So, okay, listen, this was great getting together again. Spread the word. We could always manage. At max, we had, I think, about maybe 15, 16, fluctuating back and forth guys in this session, which seemed to work out pretty well. So that's it. As always, be safe. Have a good life.
Thank you, Bill.
Take care.
Nice
Thanks for inviting us.
Take care, everybody.
Bill.
All righty.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Bye.
I'm signing everybody out.
Josh, Allah Smaladuk.
Same to you.